Hello, my name is Beth McDonald Stone, and I'm an avid knitter and knitwear designer coming to you from Bermuda. So I hope everyone's okay. Well, happy knitting. Spring's here on this side of the world. Nothing really much to report. Thanks for all the well wishes for Oliver. That was quite a dramatic episode last week and definitely not intended. Oliver, if you didn't watch, Oliver, while I was recording, came home on his bike between IB exams and fell over on just in the back here, but no speed, but just the bike landed on his foot. It's a scooter, they're heavy. And we ended up having to go to the hospital, whatever. Anyways, it's right in the month. Now we're in the middle of the IB exams. That was the first week of the IB exams. And so you can imagine we didn't want any injuries. That was badly timed. We don't want injuries, period. Anyways, so that was that. So thank you so much to everyone who sent well wishes to Oliver. He's doing really well. It's now just a time to recover. It's not like he's doing a lot because he's studying, so I guess it's fine. And he's walking better and better every day. So anyway, so that was that. Thank you again. Since then, not much drama, and I'm glad to report Oliver's now over the hump of exams. He's on the downward hill, although the downward hill is a bunch of his, not his hardest, but I would consider the hardest exams, chemistry, math, and biology. And they have multiple exams. So I think biology isn't actually over. Now it's just chemistry and math. So yeah, so that's it. Anyways, we'll be all glad when exams are over. It is crazy to think I have a son that's finished high school. That's bonkers. It feels like I literally just dropped him off for day school last week. But anyways, it's great. It's exciting. He'll be off to university next year. Yay. And I hope to do a bit more traveling then. But anyways, we'll see how that all evolves. I don't want to get ahead of myself because you just never know. Anyways, so that is everything that we've pretty much been up to. I've been knitting up a storm. Like I've said recently, my inspiration is massive right now. I can't knit fast enough. I'm inspired by design. I'm inspired by other people's designs. It's really great. It's really fun. And that's super because, it keeps you busy. And I love being busy with knitting. And I like being busy with creativity. That's the thing. I remember as a young child working on creative projects and feeling a heavy sense of anxiety when I was between creative projects, like, a painting project or like building something. I was always in the backyard, like nailing pieces of wood together and stuff like that. And when a creative project was over, I remember being really sad and really anxious to find another. And I'm so glad to have knitting because just one pattern just leads right into another pattern. And there's so much wonderful inspiration out there. Having a bit of a stash helps, and it just flows into each other. And I think that's just great. And I find that really satisfying. I'm sure you all do too. So yeah, so that's pretty much our last few weeks. It's getting warmer. It's nice we still have the doors open. But I would imagine if not next episode, but the following episode, it will be into air conditioning. So that's a shame because it's lovely to feel the breeze and hear the birds and all that. And I do love to fall asleep to our whistling frogs at night. And when the air conditioning gets turned on, you don't really hear that. So anyways, but all good. So yeah, so I'm entering this episode thinking I really have nothing to tell you because last time I basically had done a month between sort of what am I working on. So I had a lot to talk to you about and a lot of finished objects. And so now 2 weeks later, I'm kind of just over that hurdle of sort of halfway through a bunch of stuff and not a lot on the needle. So this could be quick. So let's start with the what have I finished? And that is this. So I finished my second version of the mango tea. The mango tea is currently it's been tech edited and it's in testing. This is my more recent one. I wanted a solid neutral. I love it. I'm really pleased with it. The yarn I'd like to talk a bit more about because there's pros and cons to it. But the color, the fit, everything, the drape of this yarn is fantastic. And again, this is just my design that I took off of an old t-shirt that I bought from Mango years and years and years ago, and it was basically becoming totally threadbare, and I was totally bummed about it and hesitating to wear it, and then I just thought, this is such an easy silhouette to knit. So why not knit it in a really nice, really light yarn, creating a lovely, light, nice fabric for the cooler months. And I love it. And it's sort of opened up a whole nother sort of realm to which I'd like to explore with different designs and shapes and details and stuff like that. So yeah, so this is the first sort of one with this construction for me. So this is a top down kind of, there's a word for it, contiguous, sorry, design. It's drop shoulder, but it's kind of a contiguous yoke concept with a drop shoulder sleeve. So yeah, I'm really into drop shoulder. I'm really into oversized. I know I talk about that a lot, but I can't emphasize that enough. So basically you just cast on stitches here, put markers in, and then I'll tell you where you increase and then when you join in the neck. So there's no short row shaping in the neckline area. It's all just basically increases at certain points and then joining the front together. Really quite simple. And that's great. And then you kind of continue to increase. I'm holding my arms out like this so you can see the shape, and continue to increase all along this shoulder stitch area here until you have the width you want. I've knit this on, I think it's a size 3, so it's a 48-inch width, so it's really oversized, which I really love. And that also then, of course, as a drop shoulder, brings your sleeves down your arms. So it's not like, what's your upper arm diameter? It's mid arm, and I'm not very pumped, so mine is not very big. And I encourage people to measure and make sure this is the right fit for them, because arms are just like everything else in your body. Everyone's are so different. So it's impossible to write a pattern, especially for a fitted sleeve cuff, that's going to fit everyone. So super easy. Know your sleeve cuff, that, you know, where you want it mid arm to fit, and then you literally just in flat knit this section on the front and the back. Super simple. Likewise the other side, of course. And then you would just pick up those stitches around here. I've given you guidance, but again, arms and sleeves are a whole nother area of fit. Like, of course, we talk mostly about chest fit and bust fit and ease through this area here, but we could discuss all that too. So it's, you know, I think you have to pick one area, and then the pattern will give instructions for that area too. So anyway, so that's that. For this one, I used a yarn called Plymouth Yarn, is the manufacturer, and it's called Nettle Grove. Color 40 pearl gray, or gray pearl. It's a very cool fabric. It's unfortunately discontinued. Very cool yarn. It's unfortunately discontinued. I've kind of, I mean, I'm guessing, but I've kind of figured out maybe why. If you were here last episode, I was talking about how I put another ball, attached it around this section here, around my chest, just after rejoining in the round under the armhole area. And it was a little darker, and I was like, I'm not chasing perfection. I'll just keep it going. Well, then, you know, we were at the hospital, so I was totally distracted, so I really didn't look at it, and the yarn was totally different. So the next day, when life had kind of calmed down to being normal, I had a look at the balls, and I had 4 balls from one dye lot, which is what this is, the center part's made out of, and 4 balls from another dye lot. The other dye lot was clearly such an inferior yarn quality, and not even talking about like the color, but just, it was very, I've been thinking about it since then, it's very weedy. It was very thick and thin, with more thin than thick. Wasn't at all enjoyable to knit. Anyway, so that's when I realized, wow, this is almost like 2 sets of 4 separate yarns that I'm trying to make work into one sweater. So I did have to rip that bit out, but not a big deal. And so what I did is I focused on the dye lot that was clearly very good. And I then, sorry, my husband's walking around the house not to disturb us, so that's really sweet, but he just went by the back door. Anyway, so there was one half of the yarn that was a really good dye lot, and it was just, you know, beautiful, beautiful to knit with. I would, you know, it's lovely and toothy, and you could probably even do like color work on it, you know, for summer knits and stuff like that. I thought, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing yarn. And then the yarn from the other dye lot, which was, oh my gosh, this is horrible to knit with, and I really don't like it. I used for just the cuffs and the neckline and the hem. And it worked out perfectly. Like I eked out just the right length, like everything I wanted to do with a nice yarn. And I had tons to deal with for the kind of crummy yarn for the neckline and the cuffs and the hem. Yeah. The hem flares, so I'm gonna have to pull it out. I haven't sewn in the tails. I'm still thinking about it because it was so unpleasant to knit with the weedy one that I'm kind of trying to decide whether it really bothers me that much or whether, like honestly in a week, whether I'll forget and who cares. But yeah, it was really weedy. Like here, you can't see my, oh, do it this way. But it's just not as nice. It's not as nice. Anyways, it looks okay here and here, but yeah. Anyway, so the pattern will tell you to go down to the right needle size for the hem. You won't have that kind of flaring look. That's just the progress of this design, and the yarn, no big deal, won't hit you. But I'm kind of bummed, and I think it looks kind of crummy. And I'm gonna have to do it, I think. But yeah, it's just not a fun yarn to work with. Let me just pause it, or just Jeff, come through and, you know, oh, he wants to make a coffee. Okay, I'll come back in a second. Coffee is made. We're back. There's also sort of someone coming to pick up something soon, so I'm really hoping we can pack this in because Lynn is lying down. She's calm. She's happy. I've given her a bone. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to keep on going. Okay. So weedy yarn, didn't love it. The other thing about the yarn, when I blocked it in this ink, it let off a lot of color. So maybe not in the end good for color work. And the shame of it is this is supposed to be machine washable yarn, like a garment with this yarn. So if it's giving off color, I'm not going to put it in the machine because it's going to ruin everything else. So it kind of like a really cool concept yarn. Really, if it could just be a little bit better and a bit more consistent, I would say, wow, this is a winner. The one other thing I'd say is it's not really for really, really hot weather either. It would be a great substitute for someone who can't do wool. So I can see kind of why it maybe is discontinued. My guess is that the consistency just wasn't there. Yeah, but maybe someone else makes a wonderful nettle yarn, and I will look into more nettle yarns because I'm intrigued. And like you can just see that the drape of this is fabulous. It's really wonderful. So I'll say it one more time just to show you, because the next thing I'm going to talk about is another version. So it's great, just really drapey, perfect. Oh, and this necklace, this is really cool. This is a necklace chain with stitch markers, and I've added like a Bermuda roof, but oh, and a kite for Easter. These are designed by a really good friend of mine, Rebecca Little. She's really talented, local jeweler. But the chain and all these really fun stitch markers and tapestry needle and crochet hook, really neat to wear. This is from Birdie Parker Designs, so check it out. And then add your own personalizing things. I like when gold and silver are mixed too. Okay, so back to this nettle yarn. Cool concept. Hopefully there's a different version out there. Mango tea, love it. Love it so much that what I wanted to do next actually was to do a mango sweater, you know, like a winter version. But then I realized I bought this really cool yellow skirt. I'll have to show you another time. Maybe when I have the finished object, I'll wear the yellow skirt. But I bought a really cool yellow skirt in town last week, which is really fun. And I remembered, oh my gosh, I've got great yellow yarn. So I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to do another version of the mango tea, but to do it at what I was going to use weight-wise for the mango sweater, which was sort of more of a DK, so like a 20 stitch gauge. So great thing is this is Drops Bell in a colorway, I'm not sure, I'll say color 4. The name is written below in the description box. And so I just started it this weekend. And I had in my stash more, not a lot more, but I have a bit more of the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. So I'm holding that double in this gray, which I think is called Lamb's Ear, and I think it's color, I don't know the number, but Lamb's Ear gray, really pretty. And so I've just cast on another one in a 20 stitch gauge, which is going to be great. I can't wait. I started this on Saturday, and at a 20 stitch gauge, it really does knit up quickly. Again, I'm really into this striping repeat of 2x6. I just think it's really cool. It's what I'm into right now. I think striping repeats, I get interested in different proportions, and this is just the current one. Yeah, so I'm just working on this. You can see that there's this sort of straight back and how you do increases in the front to join and at the shoulders to get the width here. So you can see the increases there. It's a backwards loop increase, because I find when you increase every round with something like knit one, like make one left, make one right, that every round they kind of stack on top of each other and create like a weird puckering. And this way it gives a bit of room, a little space. I think when I block this, wash and block this when it's finished, I think that space will ease up a little bit. But for now, it's cool. And I mean, you can't even see it on this one really at all. That's the fingering weight version. So yeah, so that's the method behind that madness there, with the increases having the backwards loop. And in the future, you know, you never know what I'll come up with to make it different. But yeah, and then once I finish that, because that's great, it's for the summer, it is beginning of summer, then I'll do the winter, the sweater weight, and then basically that'll all be under one other pattern with sleeve options and things like that. This is the Drops Bell. I did a nice swatch. I'm really interested, especially for summer weight yarns, but really for any weight yarn, is to find the point of that yarn, like the gauge of that yarn where it is perfect, but one step away from it being too loose. So you can see here, this is a US 8 needle, and the stitches are a bit wonkier, but as soon as you go down to the US 4 and you get the 20 stitch gauge, they just line up perfectly and almost don't even need to be blocked. So that's kind of, it's that little tension where the yarn is just right. But I mean, you can make it more dense, and that's great, but you want it to be as open as possible for the best drape available, but just keeping it even, consistent looking, less wiggly. It's hard to see when you have this in your hand. You can really see where there's some stitches that kind of, there's too much looseness, so they have a little wobble in them in the US 8 needle, but they just fit perfectly on the US 7 needle, the 20 stitch gauge. I think this would be more like an 18 stitch gauge here. It was a big jump, I'll be honest. But anyway, so that's interesting, and I wanted to bring that up because I think that's really fun to explore and to find out for one particular garment's use, what is that gauge that creates that tension of just almost too much, but just right, like that. With winter yarns and with different designs, you might want something different. You might want something that's a little bit more dense, a little bit more fold in, especially if you're doing color work so you don't see anything through. You know, whatever. There's always a purpose behind different things and gauges and getting you the result you want. And it's a really interesting thing, I think, to think about when you're I want to say, interviewing your yarn, or you're auditioning your yarn, you know, which I definitely like to do. So that is kind of the mango family that I'm working on. Really excited about that. The other design that I'm working on is not mine. It's from Caitlin Hunter. I love Caitlin Hunter's design. I think she's very cool and does really neat things. So I'm working on the big Bobble Tank. Isn't it neat? I'm putting on the second sleeve. This is the first sort of sleeve cuff, and then down to the hem. This again is going to be a summer version. It's again Drops Bell. I took advantage of small discount at Wool Warehouse in the UK, and they will ship to us in Bermuda, and it arrives very quickly at our post office. Not very quickly. It arrives in 2 or 3 weeks at our post office here. and it's very straightforward. I ordered 11 balls. I probably should have ordered 12. So I am kind of playing, the length is going to be determined by what I have left. I will try it on, and if it really would mean so much to have more yarn. Now, this is already longer in the body, I mean, minus the ribbing, than what the pattern says. So this is just now more for my customization, adding more yarn. If it does need more yarn, really, truly, and it would make it like a make or break length, then I will be fine to order more and wait. The great thing with Wool Warehouse, and I hope I'm getting this right and not confusing it with another yarn supplier, but I'm pretty sure it's Wool Warehouse, where you can also look when you request the yarn and the color. I think there's also another box for a drop-down box for different dye lots that are available. So that might be a win there, because I'm not really keen on messing around like I did here. I just, oh, and again, not chasing perfection, but just, you know, trying to make odds and sods work. But anyway, so that if I really need to, I totally can and finish it later. I kind of don't want to. I kind of like sometimes having parameters that I have to work within. It gives me limits, and I kind of like that. So I think I can do it. I've got, I think, one full ball left. And yeah, one full ball left. So that's Drops Bell, that's the label. Bell, sorry, upside down. There's the right way. Drops Bell, the label. And I've got these 2 partial balls. I think they're pretty much, I would say, just over half there each. So I think we can do quite well. Now I know there's a lot of talk that Drops Bell and Sandnes Garnlina are the same yarn. And I have been a huge Sandnes Garnlina fan for a really long time. And it is my #1 summer weight yarn, summer fiber yarn to knit with and to wear and to like literally throw it in the washing machine and the dryer and wear it the next day. Love that. And also I don't feel anything on my hands tension wise or sort of fatigue wise. I find it a pleasure to knit, a pleasure to wear, and practical for heat and humidity. Drops Bell, I mean, all the information does sort of say the same with the yarn content, which is, I should know this off by heart, cotton, viscose, and linen. Everything looks the same, the ply looks the same, etc. It just feels like in the Drops Bell that it's either the dyeing process is a bit more harsh with drops. There's like a finishing part that's not on this one that is on the Sandnes Garnlina family. And I'm not sure what that is, but I find the Sandnes Garnlina almost feels cool, where this one doesn't as much. I'll be so curious how it wears and how it washes and everything like that, how the color stays. I find the color is very sturdy in the Lina. So we'll see. I mean, that's that. Being able to just order Drops Bell easily and have it sent right to my post office is a real advantage. I find Royal Mail for Bermuda is really good. The USPS is okay, but it literally takes a month. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's the Bermuda side. I'm sure it's not the USPS side. So Royal Mail, I kind of would prefer. When it gets to the US, I usually actually send it to a freight forwarder, which then it means I can keep a track of it and whatever, and help it sort of import and help with the customs and all that. Navigate it that way. So it's more of a service, but it's expensive. So it literally, you know, in Bermuda we have to pay import duty. That's a no-brainer. We don't shipping to anyways. So yeah, so I'll be so curious about the Drops Bell, what I think about it over time, wearing, whether it feels cool, because like I said, the Lina to the touch feels cool. This one doesn't as much, but it feels cool as in groovy cool, especially this pattern. So this is the big bobble. It's a lot of bobbles. I don't love working bobbles, I'll be totally honest. I actually do find if I'm going to get hand strained, that's where I'm getting hand strained, because you're kind of really manipulating the stitches. But what I do is like I said, I always try to pace myself. So when I've got to the body, I've been trying to do sort of 1 full repeat a night at least. So basically, which means only 1 bobble round, and that's doable. That's totally fine. And because it's such a big gauge, it knits up quickly that way. I think I was doing 2 when it was the half, you know, something very manageable. So what I'm going to do some measuring, weighing my yarn as I go now to make sure I can optimize it in length. And the bobbles, of course, do eat up a lot of yarn. So I might just do 1 more bobble row and then try to add length with the sort of, I think it's like 9 or 10 rows in between here, eight or 9, I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. The rows in between here. So if I get 1 more bobble row and then some more length and then the ribbing, I think we're good. And that should work with the yarn I have left. Fingers crossed, we'll see. And then that will be wonderful. So yeah, so that's that. And then the other thing that I've barely knit on is this sock, the Quilty cabin sock. I love Swanky sock from Magpie Fibers, so I've used half of a skein that I have left over and a really fun one-of-a-kind color from Gina of Skein Cocaine there, so that's really cool. This is really fun. It's just not been a huge priority. I did turn the heel. That's the progress I've made. We'll see. But socks for me are not priority. They're just really fun. And I just love going around and around on them. I take them to, when I go to family dinners, I think it's great because then I don't sit and eat all the appetizers because I have my hands busy and I can chat and hang out. But if my hands aren't busy, I would love appetizers and then I can't eat the dinner and I come home feeling really stuffed and mad at myself. So yeah, tactics there. So yeah, so I think that's all I've finished, what I'm working on. And I'm sure I'm going to be playing more with the Mango series in the future. And yeah, really good. One other thing that's not knitting related that I wanted to talk to you about today, because I've gotten a lot of questions on it, are the flags that I have on the wall. They're old. They're on linen or they're sewn into linen. My grandfather was the alderman of Hamilton, of the city of Hamilton. So when and there always is sort of flags flying at on Front Street. Usually, of course, it's just Bermuda flag, but I think when there's dignitaries in, sometimes there's other flags. So when my grandparents passed away, I was helping to clean out their house, and in the garage, I found a bunch of flags. And so I've got duplicates of these. Anyways, I just thought they were really neat. They were really old. And I think flags are a really interesting graphic. Like it's, again, art in my mind. So I had them framed. And at the time for my birthday, this is probably 10 years ago that I framed them. I had them from years before, but when we put this kitchen together, I really thought it'd be fun to have a wall of flags. My husband surprised me for Christmas with an amazing, really old Canadian flag, because the Canadian flag that you know now with the big maple leaf is pretty recent. I want to say 1961 or in the 60s sometime. I remember being in like grade 1 or 2 and they celebrated the 20th year of the Canadian flag and we all drew Canadian flags and we put maple leaves all over the walls because I grew up in Toronto. Anyways, so the Canadian flag, the current Canadian flag, I like it. I think it's really cool. It's very graphic, like you really see it from a distance. But I also like the old Canadian flags, but basically the old Canadian flags were sort of, you'd have the British Union Jack, and then you'd have sort of a coat of arms and stuff. And there wasn't really even a standard one. So Jeff gave me for Christmas an amazing, huge Canadian flag from like 1921 that was used on a ship. So it's 6 feet long. So I can't frame it. I have it put away. I wanted to pull it out to show you. I couldn't find it. I didn't look hard. It's not gone. It's folded up and put away neatly, because what I would like to do is, since I looked into framing it, and that would be a fortune, and it would take up like the width of above the Union Jack, and installing it up there over the stairs would be just such a nightmare. I have a sofa back here which I sit at, and it's kind of starting to age a bit, to show some wear. And I think it'd be really fun to upholster it with this old I don't think it's called the Canadian flag. I think it's called the Canadian ensign. And that would be really neat. So that's there. In the meantime, I've got a little Canadian pillow there that I love. It's a great lumbar pillow. So the Union Jack, British, obviously. That's an American flag, obviously. but it is old and it predates when Alaska and Hawaii joined. So there's 2 stars missing. So that dates it at least to any time before 1959. And then I've got more folded up somewhere. But again, American and British. I guess obviously that so Bermuda is a British colony. So the Bermudian flag, which I don't have up, actually, duh, that's really interesting. The Bermudian flag, which maybe I can put an image of it here, is very interesting, but I guess that's why my grandfather always had these around in case he had to fly them for dignitaries. Interesting enough, after my grandfather passed and my grandmother passed, but mostly my grandfather, because his love of the island and his involvement of the island and his deep regard of Bermuda, the flagpole, which is sort of the central flagpole for the island on Front Street, Hamilton, needed to be replaced. And so it was replaced in his honor. And so that's kind of neat. So in my mind, it's sort of the flags are sort of my grandparents, especially my grandfather, you know, and they're from his garage. And I like them a lot. I think they're really neat. I think flag designs are fascinating. Kind of like all the utilitarian designs that are out there, flags, subway maps, even all of the signs that like enter signs or exit or emergency or all of those sort of very generic it's art, and a lot of effort went into creating them to make it as clear and distinct and as unique to what it's trying to tell you and communicate with you. I think it's fascinating. There was once an amazing exhibition, very small, but really amazing, at the Cooper Hewitt on visual signs and how they kind of evolved and stuff like that. You know, what maybe the images started at and either were simplified over time. And it was a really great exhibition. So that was at the Cooper Hewitt, wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, just on signs. They had signs from the Olympics, because of course the Olympics was, this is right, the Olympics, because in the Olympics, of course, you have people from so many different countries speaking so many different languages, and they needed to really communicate, you know, the different events and buildings and everything, but they needed to do it in a universal way. And so that's when a lot of the first signage or first sort of cohesive signage that came about was actually because of the International Olympics. Pretty neat, huh? Anyways, love that. So that's why I have flags up here. Old American, it's an old British one, but the British one sort of is old and it looks the same. But the American one, I've had people comment like, why are there 2 stars missing and stuff like that? And it's just history of the States. So I'm going to leave you there today, and we haven't had any more interruptions. Hooray! And I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm going to leave you with a video from this morning when Luna, the dog, who's really cooperating. Thank you, Luna. She's asleep right there. When we were walking this morning on the railway trail, and we were at a different part that we don't usually get to just because Jeff dropped us off on his way elsewhere, and it was just so pretty, and it's a rock cut. It was an old railway trail before cars were allowed. There was a railroad that went from one end of the island to the other with a little hook into the middle to go into Hamilton and back out. And so there's a lot of kind of really interesting rock cuts, and of course that was from the 40s, so that's over 100 years, no, just under 100 years ago. So the rock walls have just become really beautiful with lots of plants, and it's really natural and really quiet and really pretty. Bermuda has a lot of feral chickens. Luna loves chickens. They break her brain. She just sees a chicken and she wants to chase it. I don't think she wants to eat it. She just wants to chase it and catch it in her mouth and bring it back to me. Thank you. So we've had a few incidences of chickens this week. I've got a kind of cut up leg. She jumped over a wall to chase after chicken and brought me to. But anyway, so today at the very end, there was a really beautiful rooster, I think. And Luna was really behaved and sat still while I filmed the rooster, and she didn't chase it. So baby steps. Anyways, enjoy the videos. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Happy knitting. Bye.